Hello class, Dr. Bauer's office hours, and this week we're going to be covering deontic ethics, which, if you remember from our intro video, is the ethics which is concerned with absolute principles, either absolute obligations which you have to follow regardless of the consequences, or absolute prohibitions, things that you can never ever do no matter what the consequences might be. And the first deontic ethics we're going to look at is the ethics of Immanuel Kant. This is the most famous defender of deontic ethics. Here's some study guide questions to start us off. 1. What is an imperative? 2. What is it for an imperative to be categorical? 3. What is it for an imperative to be hypothetical? 4. How many categorical imperatives are there, according to Kant? 5. What is the second formulation of Kant's categorical imperative? 6. What is humanity in Kant's sense of the term? 7. What are means and ends? 8. What is it to treat someone as a mere means? 9. What does it mean to say that a person cannot consent to something in principle? 10. What is an easy example of treating someone as a mere means? 11. What is it to treat someone as an end? 12. So, how do the utilitarian and the Kantian disagree, basically? As always, when you watch the lecture, you'll want to follow along with a pad and a pencil or a laptop or some way of taking notes so that you can fill in the answers to these questions as we proceed. And just a reminder, the reading for this lecture is Onara O'Neill's A Simplified Account of Kant's Ethics. Now, let's begin with some terminology. What is an imperative? The best way to think of an imperative is as a command, something that you must do, something that you have to do. Basically, an imperative is something that tells you what to do. They're all over the place. You hear them and you see them every day. When people tell you, shut the door, or give me the aux cord, those are all imperatives. Or consider the imperatives you see in the form of signs. When it says, use the stairs, or keep right, or enter through the side door. Those are all things that are telling you what to do. A sign that says enter through the side door, or a sign that says keep right, those are both commands. Keep right is a command. Keep right is an imperative. Use the side door is a command. Use the side door is an imperative. Same thing with use the stairs, keep off the grass. All of those are imperatives. Now that you can think of a few, ask a good question. When does an imperative apply to you? Do they just always apply, all of them? If I'm walking down the street and I see a sign that says use the side door, do I immediately stop whatever I'm doing and go and use their side door? It's a command. Or does that command only apply to some people, like people who want to get into that building? They should use the side door. If I'm driving down the road and I see that there's this sign way over there and it says keep right, do I automatically keep to the right no matter what? Or is that sign meant only for some people in certain circumstances? If you mean to take this particular road, then you keep to the right. Likewise for use the stairs. If I happen to be walking down a hallway and I see the sign that says use the stairs, should I automatically just use their stairs regardless of what my other purposes are? Or is use the stairs an imperative that only applies in some circumstances? Like if you want to get to a certain place that's down there, you use the stairs, not the elevator. Well, you can tell from all the examples that the answer is no. Those commands, use the stairs, use the side door, things like that, they don't apply to everyone universally all the time. It's not like use side door, that sign applies to everybody regardless of where they're headed. No, only the people who are headed in that building. That command applies to them. A command that only applies to some people under certain circumstances are called hypothetical imperatives. Right? Most of the commands that there are hypothetical imperatives. If there's a sign that says keep off the grass, that's a hypothetical imperative. It doesn't mean everyone always forever should keep off all the grass. It means that most people should keep off this grass, unless, of course, perhaps you're the groundskeeper or the owner of the grass or something like that. Right? Likewise, for use the side door. Use the side door is a hypothetical imperative. That is, it's an imperative that only applies to some of the people in some circumstances. It's not true that everyone should always use the side door no matter what. Only the people who want to go in that building should use the side door. So it's a hypothetical imperative. Contrast this with a categorical imperative. A categorical imperative would be a command that applies to everyone no matter what. It wouldn't matter whether you're someone who wants to go in that building or not. It would not matter whether you're someone who needs to go downstairs or not. It would apply to you regardless of what your goals are. That would be a sign where no matter what, if you could read it, it applied to you, and even if you couldn't read it, it would still apply to you. Right? That would be a categorical imperative. All right? So there are two types of imperatives. There are the imperatives or the commands which only apply to some of the people in certain circumstances, like use the side door, pass the salt, close the door, right? Those are all hypothetical imperatives. And then there's the idea of an imperative that applies to everyone no matter what, a universal imperative. That's what the word categorical kind of means. And that's a categorical imperative. Hypothetical imperatives, those are rules that apply to some of the people depending on what they're trying to do. And categorical imperatives, commands that apply to everyone no matter what. Those are the two kinds of imperatives. Hypothetical, categorical. So, with that in mind, how many categorical imperatives did Kant think there were? Well, he thought there was one. One categorical imperative. One universal command which applies to everyone, and he thought that it was the basis of all of morality. It's for this reason that when people talk about Kant and Kant's ethics, they often talk about the categorical imperative, or Kant's categorical imperative, as if it were a single unique thing. It's more like this, that Kant believes that there are two types of imperatives, hypothetical and categorical, and it just so happens, or necessarily so happens, that there is one universal imperative. There is one universal rule. To complicate things, Kant thought that you could express this universal rule in three different ways. There are three different ways to explain what this one universal rule is. You could phrase it this way, you could phrase it that way, you could phrase it a third way. And for this reason, Kant scholars and ethicists, they talk about the three formulations of Kant's categorical imperative. They talk about the first formulation, the second formulation, the third formulation of Kant's categorical imperative. That's the way that ethicists talk, and we'll be talking that way as we proceed. O'Neill limits the reader's attention to just the second formulation of the categorical imperative, so we'll do that as well. The second formulation of the categorical imperative, that is, this is what Kant thinks all of morality is based on, this one rule. The rule says, always treat humanity, whether your own or another's, as an end and never as a mere means. Always treat humanity, whether your own or another's, as an end and never as a mere means. All right, that's actually two rules, always do this and never do that. Well, maybe. First thing to note is that we've got these two bits of the formulation, two bits of this rule. On one hand, it says, always treat humanity as an end. What does that mean? We'll find out in a second. But it says, always treat humanity as an end. And the second is, never treat humanity as a mere means, right? So that's what the rule of morality says, the universal rule of morality, according to Kant. It says, always treat humanity as an end, never treat humanity as a mere means. Oh, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about someone else's humanity or your own humanity. What on earth are we talking about? Let's go bit by bit. First of all, humanity. What does Kant mean when he speaks of humanity? Kant means your ability to make choices based on reasons. That's what your humanity is. It's helpful to contrast your humanity with what Kant called inclination or even instinct, right? Some behaviors are done either instinctively, like you just sort of do them without any deliberative thought at all, like when your knee kicks if a doctor taps it with a hammer. And some are just the result of wanting stuff, where you don't even think about what you're doing, you just want it, so you reach for it. So you want to scratch an itch, and so you just do. You don't pause and you think like, should I scratch the itch? No, you just do it, right? A lot of what we do is either instinctive or out of inclination, right? Those are the sorts of things which are not reflective of our humanity, according to Kant. That's not what humanity is about. Humanity, according to Kant, is the ability to stop and to think, is this something I should do? What are the reasons? And then choosing on the basis of reasons to do it, right? Choosing to do something not because you want to, but because you should. Where maybe the fact that you want to figures into the reason why you should, but the point is that you act on the basis of reasons and not on the basis of just wanting stuff or on the basis of instinct. The capacity to do that, according to Kant, is humanity. Note that in order to have humanity, you don't really, in principle, have to be a human, right? An intelligent robot that could think about itself, like Lieutenant Commander Data or Chappie, is that the name of that? Yeah, or you know, like a Pinocchio character, right? Or an alien, a space alien, you know, that was intelligent and had feelings and could make choices and decide what to do, right? They would have humanity in Kant's sense, right? What doesn't have humanity, according to Kant, are simpler animals and plants and simpler life forms. They do stuff because they want to. When my dog wants food, he just kind of goes for it. You put the food down in front of him and he goes, right? It's almost like a magnet. There isn't a deliberative process. My dog does not ask, should I eat the food? I know I want to, but should I? That distinction does not exist in my dog's mind, I don't think, nor does it exist in many kinds of animals' minds. But it does exist in the human mind, and Kant, that's what humanity is about, is this ability to make reason-based choices. That's what humanity is. So that is the thing that we're concerned with when we talk about morality. So how are we supposed to relate to this thing, our ability to make reasoned choices? Kant says that you should always treat that ability to choose freely, you should always treat that as an end. Never treat it as a means, or a mere means. Excuse me, those are different. What does that mean? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, what are means and ends? An end is a goal or a purpose. An end is the thing that you're trying to do, right? If I want to get some ice cream, then getting some ice cream is my end. Getting some ice cream is my goal. If I want to get some ice cream, that's the end I have set for myself. The means are the steps to achieving a goal. The means are the way to achieve the goal. They're the process by which the goal is pursued. So if my end is to get ice cream, the means I take might be to walk to the ice cream store, or drive to the ice cream store, or teleport magically to the ice cream store if I were so able. Those would be means to achieving the end of getting ice cream, right? The means are the steps that you take to achieving a goal. The end is the goal. So when we say to treat humanity as an end, we mean to treat humanity as a goal, or as a thing to promote, a thing to maintain. That's our goal, is to have people make reasoned choices. What is important for Kant, unlike the utilitarian, is not that people have pleasure, is that they choose freely. Right? To promote humanity as an end is to make the ability for people to choose with reasons a goal. It's to promote that. That, thinks Kant, is what being ethically good is all about. We'll have more to say on this soon, but let's focus on the other half of that categorical imperative, the second formulation, right? We're supposed to always treat humanity as an end and never treat humanity as a mere means. Mere is another way of saying just or only. If I say it's merely a hologram, that means it's only a hologram. If I say it's merely a photo, that means it's only a photo. If I say he's a mere security guard, that means he's only a security guard. If I say it's merely 50 cents, that's a way of saying it's just 50 cents. Merely means only or just. So when Kant writes that you should never treat humanity as a mere means, he means this. You should never treat a person's ability to make reasoned choices as nothing more than a way to get what you want. There's a lot in there. But a mere means, to use someone as a mere means, is to, and this is the way O'Neill puts it, to involve them in a plan of action that they could not in principle consent to. To treat someone in a mere means, in other words, is to use them. Is to use them and to take nothing more into account than you're using them. Right? That's what treating someone as a mere means is about, is using them as a mere tool. Just using them and not acknowledging any other feature other than you're using them. And Kant thinks that that's what immorality is all about. Let's focus on what this means according to O'Neill. O'Neill says that to treat someone as a mere means, specifically, is to involve them in a plan of action to which they could not in principle consent. Right? To treat someone as a mere means is to involve them in a plan of action to which they could not in principle consent. What does in principle mean? It means by definition. It means that the very action you're thinking of is defined in a way where you could not consent to that thing. Right? Just because of how the action is considered, just by the definition of what it is. Here's an easy example. Suppose I walk up to you and I say, "Can I steal a pencil?" What am I asking? Can I steal a pencil? There's something funny about that, isn't there? Asking to steal a pencil. What's funny about that? Just take a second. What's weird about asking, "Can I steal a pencil?" Like, may I please steal? What's weird about that? Yeah, what's weird is that if you're getting permission, you're not really stealing, are you? Right? If a person says, "Yes, you may steal my pencil, here," that's not me stealing it. At that point, they're giving it to me or loaning it to me, or they're doing something with it which is not my theft. Right? In order to steal something, in other words, in order for the act to even be defined as stealing, the party that you're stealing from must not consent. The thing must be taken either without their permission or without their knowledge. Because, of course, that's what consent is you knowingly permit something. Right? So in order to steal something, the victim of theft cannot consent to it. That's built into the definition of stealing. Right? So theft is something which by definition a person could not consent to. By definition, you cannot consent to being stolen from. And theft is not the only such action like that. Another well-known and easy-to-recognize example is sexual assault or rape. You cannot consent to being raped. That's the definition of the action. By definition, a sexual assault is one that the victimized party did not know about or did not agree to. They did not give their consent, and that's part of what it is by definition for sexual assault to occur. It's impossible by definition to consent to being sexually assaulted. Kant believed that you could not consent to being lied to. If someone said, "I'm going to lie to you," and I said, "All right, I'm okay with that, please proceed," then in a way they've already warned me of their lie. They've already warned me that they're not telling the truth. So they haven't really lied to me, because now I know. In order for them to lie to me, I must not know that they are telling me an untruth. That's how lying works. And more besides, when you think about it, a person cannot consent to being blackmailed. They cannot consent to being forced to do something. They cannot consent to being enslaved or being murdered even. Or at least that's what Kant thought. And he had a little explanation for why the definition of each one of these sorts of acts precludes the possibility of being a consenting party to it. So to treat someone as a mere means, according to Kant, is to involve them in a plan of action which they could not in principle consent to, such as a plan to steal from them, a plan to lie to them, a plan to violate their consent in some way. That's what immorality is about. So we see what the second formulation of the categorical imperative focuses on. It's this idea that you should always promote a person's ability to look at their own situation and use reasons to decide what to do. And you should never, ever, ever use that ability to choose as a tool for your own gain. That's what immorality is about. You can never use someone as a free choosing agent just because it helps you get something. And you should always, always promote a person's ability to choose for themselves. That's Kantian ethics, at least according to the second formulation of the categorical imperative. So, at the end of the day, when the owl of Minerva wings its flight, how exactly do Kantian ethics and utilitarian ethics differ? Well, hugely. There's an enormous difference between focusing on pleasure and making people happy and focusing on what allows the most number of people to choose stuff for themselves. Right? Consider this situation. Imagine that I had the ability to go around and to make people happier with a touch. Just by touching them, I had this X-Men power to just put them in a good mood, right? Just go around and touch people and it just zaps them with some kind of hormones or something, and they go, things are nice today, right? Suppose I had that power. Or suppose you had that power. If you had that power to just put people in a good mood by touching them, would you go around touching people to try to put everyone in a good mood, make the world a happier place? According to the utilitarian, you definitely should. That would be the ethical thing to do. In fact, you're required to do that. With great power comes great responsibility, says ethical Uncle Ben, right? That's how the utilitarian would view that kind of X-Men power, that you have to go out and use it as much as you can. But Kant would actually take the opposite perspective. If you go around touching people and making them happier, for what? Just to make the world a happier place? You're using those people. You're not getting their consent, and you're involving them in this scheme where they're just little bits of happiness to promote. You're just trying to maximize the bits of happiness. You're using the fact that they're there as a free being, and you're taking it as an opportunity to stack some happiness in them, and that helps you with your happiness quotas. For the utilitarian, it's something that you have to do to be a moral person. For Kant, it's utterly immoral. And there are more differences besides. We're going to take a look at another huge difference when we consider, dun dun dun, the trolley problem. Actually, I don't have to do that voice thing because I have editing. Here. The trolley problem.